Hi! Thanks for joining us on our virtual hike today. I'm going to show you some plants that you can find next time that you're able to go outside and hike with your family. Our first one up is the largest tree in Illinois. This one is called the Cottonwood Tree, and as you can see, it grows pretty high in the sky, and it loves to have its roots laid down by the water.
Hey everyone, Braden Hacker here with the Rockford Park District, and I wanted to show you some of the native plants that you might be able to find near you or in parks nearby. Right here we've got a bunch of a type of ground cover. It's a plant that covers a lot of ground area, and it's known as wild ginger. So, just like ginger you might find at the grocery store, this stuff here with the heart-shaped leaves, got an example for you right here. This stuff is going to do a great job of keeping out invasive species, so it is a good thing to see around. And if you were to pick one off and smell the root of it, it's going to smell a lot like ginger as well. Alright, now we've got something that looks similar to wild ginger, but it has some differences. So if you look at this plant down here, you'll notice that it has kind of a similar heart shape to it, but it is going to have these segments at the top. We can see a smaller version of it right there. This is called bloodroot, and it gets its name because if you were to pick it up, you can see it's got kind of a bright orangey, sometimes a bit more red color than that. And you can also sometimes see it with white flowers growing out of it.
Ahead of us here we have a lovely maple tree, and as you can see, as the leaves start to come back into the springtime, they have a little bit of their beautiful yellow orangish colors too. And you can identify a maple by its distinct leaf shape. If you're ever looking for a maraca while you're hiking out in the woods, just look for the little honey locust seed. And in addition to those really fun maraca honey locust seed pods, this is the honey locust tree, and you can see the giant thorns that it starts to grow on it to protect the sweet seeds that it contains.
Alright, in the same area we have another type of plant that pops up really early on into the spring, so it might be one of the first things that you'll see if you're out looking for plants. This right here is known as Trillium. You can tell from a couple of different ways. It's got these very cool kind of camouflage looking leaves, and it also grows in leaves of 3. It's called Trillium, so T-R-I is going to make you think of 3, and so it's got 3 leaves there, and this one doesn't fully have the flower coming up on the middle, but luckily over here we do have a couple. So this right here has the flower fully kind of exposed up here. It can be a reddish purplish color depending on where it's grown and the time of year.
So you may have heard leaves of 3, let it be, and an easy way to identify poison ivy is if it looks like that leaf has a little thumb sticking out. Do you see that there, the little thumb? But did you also know that poison ivy can grow as a big, hairy looking vine? So we always say, if it's hairy, it's scary. Now, not all vines are scary. Some vines, like this grapevine here, is exactly how it sounds. The grapes that you would eat, this is the type of vine that it grows on.
Alright, now we're going to talk about a couple of very common invasive species in the Illinois area. And so these 2 plants are going to maybe cause a lot of problems and take up a lot of space nearby. This right here is garlic mustard. It is identified because it kind of grows up very tall. It has these kind of pointed, ruffled leaves, and then also it has these white flowers on the very top of it. This stuff grows very quickly, and it'll kind of spread all over an area, so it's good to get rid of it when you can. Now, we are also going to talk about honeysuckle, which is another invasive species. This plant right here, you can tell mostly by the look of the bark and how quickly it kind of spreads. It is kind of like a bush and tree, and so it will grow up very large and spread out quite a bit as well. And it is invasive, and so it's good to get rid of it when you see it. Alright, now we've got a fun one. It's a purple-ish flower that we've got going on down here. This stuff is called phlox. It's spelled P-H-L-O-X. And one way that people remember that it's phlox is it's got 5 flower petals coming off of it. So sometimes people like to say 1, 2, 3, 4 phlox.
And if you're out hiking in May, these little things that kind of look like umbrellas are May apples, and as the month goes on, you'll be able to see that they'll start to grow a little seed that looks like an apple. It is not edible, but it got its name because it starts to grow like a green apple.
Next up, we have something hopefully you will not run into as you are walking around, maybe taking a hike. We've got some stinging nettle, and we've got a couple different variants that we're going to be showing you here. This stuff has very jagged leaves, and if we can look at the stem of it as well, it has a bunch of little needle-like things coming out of it. This stuff, if you touch it, it is going to kind of poke in you, stick in there, and it is going to be stinging you for a good few minutes if you don't do anything about it. You can rinse it off with cold water to kind of assuage that problem, and this other example that we have back here is a little bit of a larger version, but the leaves might look a little bit different depending on where you see it.
And just like all vines aren't bad, not all plants with leaves of 3 are bad. Here we have a wild raspberry plant, just like the raspberries that you would get from the grocery store as well. But the reason fruits don't grow as big out in nature is because they don't have things like fertilizers to protect them, or plants that make sure that you're breeding only the plants with the best genetics. And wild raspberries will also have a pretty strong group of thorns on them. So even though it's not poisonous, you may still want to leave it be.
Alright, this is one of my favorite trees, and so we'll close on this one. This is a hackberry tree, and the bark on this is kind of the most defining feature. It has very deep ridges, and it kind of looks like it was hacked at by an axe or something like that. So that's the one way you can remember what it is. They tend to grow very straight and pretty tall, and without a whole lot of branches down low on them. We can see a couple other hackberry trees in the area here that have similar features. This one's quite a bit smaller, but it's got similar bark, kind of the different ridges and all that on there. Then we have one that's a little bit larger than that over here. Again, very similar bark on that.